All right, thank you guys. Happy Tuesday to you. Hopefully, you had a great start to your week yesterday, and welcome to College Football Week 13. And of course, this is our ACC Conference edition. We got ourselves a handful of games on the slate beginning on Friday in the ACC, so let's go ahead and dive into them. We got it already queued up, ready to go. We're going to go ahead and talk about Notre Dame squaring off against North Carolina, and that's going to be a 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time this Friday. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame are the 4-point favorite on the road, total 66.5. Now we're 5-1 in our last 6 Underdog tier package picks on patreon.com/Brock Page, and access to the Underdog tier membership costs just $4.99. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, I'm just going to explain that a little bit more in further detail in just a few moments here. We're also 2-1 in our last 3 NFL tier membership plays on that site as well. We have over 750 members signed up and active on that site. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/Brock Page. Now, Notre Dame's scored 92 total points in their last 2 ball games, 3-1 against the spread in their last 4. The Fighting Irish, they're scoring over 40 points a game on the road this season, and they're rushing for over 205 yards in that same category. Running back Kyron Williams has 777 yards rushing on the season and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Williams is averaging nearly 6 yards per touch. Meanwhile, quarterback Ian Book's also averaging 5 yards per carry, and he's punched it into the end zone 6 times on the ground himself. And despite smaller numbers passing this season, Book still has thrown for 11 touchdowns compared to just 1 interception. So really not hurting his team with costly mistakes. Pretty efficient, not over the top, crazy numbers, but certainly isn't hurting his team. Now, wide receiver Javon Mckinley has 24 catches for 414 yards. He's averaging over 17 yards per reception. And this Notre Dame defense has also been fantastic on the road this season. Just 15 points a game they're giving up when they travel, and they're giving up less than 75 yards a game rushing in that same category. Safety Kyle Hamilton has 39 total tackles on the season and 5 PBUs. Hamilton is an absolute presence in that Notre Dame secondary. He's 6'4", 219 pounds, just an absolute unit, an absolute enforcer. And speaking of enforcers, Isaiah Foskey and Adito Kumbo Ogunjeji each have 3.5 sacks from the defensive line. I don't know how to say his name, but anyway, the Fighting Irish defense is holding their opponents to just 180 yards a game, passing on the road, and less than 4.3 yards per play in that same category. Now, they're taking on a Tar Heel ball club who's failed to cover the point spread in 2 out of their last 3 themselves. The UNC defense gives up over 31 points a game at home and nearly 300 yards passing in that same category through 8 games. Through 8 games, the Tar Heel defense has yet to force double-digit turnovers. UNC's also given up 31 points or more in 4 out of their last 6 ball games. Now, total-wise, UNC's last 4 straight all got over the posted number. They're officially 3-1 to the over in Chapel Hill. Meanwhile, Notre Dame saw their last 2 straight get over the line themselves. 5-2 to the over in their last 7. Give me the Notre Dame Fighting Irish -4 and the over 66 and a hook in that game. Before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines of personal leans out for college football Week 13, and of course, this is the ACC edition. But before we go ahead and dive into some more free content right here on YouTube, I just have to quickly remind you once again that we are 5-1 in our last 6 Underdog tier package picks on patreon.com/Brock Page. And if you want access to our Underdog tier package, it's only going to cost you just $4.99. We also went 2-1 in our last 3 NFL tier package picks on that site as well. Now, you might be wondering, why should I sign up for picks on Patreon where I can get them right here for free on YouTube? And that's certainly a great thought, a great consideration. I'd probably think of that myself. But if you were to go out there and bet every single game that's on the board, side and total, like I do with my breakdowns here on YouTube, it is certainly not a winning formula for success. And as a matter of fact, it's a recipe for disaster. I strongly do not recommend betting every game on the board. I'm telling you not to bet every game on the board, as a matter of fact. But anyway, the books are way too smart. They're way too sharp with the numbers. The odds become massively more against you the more and more games you play like that. And to be honest with you, the bookies have just so much more money than you do to be able to absorb that type of action. They can withstand those swings betting every game. You cannot. So what I do on Patreon is I break it down and focus in on just 3 to 4 premium selections per day. They're my personal plays, games that I personally have action on. And I'll tell you this much, I'm having a lot more success betting on games that way versus placing wagers on every single game that is on the slate, side and total. Now, if you're curious about joining, just keep in mind, we currently have over 750 members signed up and active on that site. It's not like it's this Bush League small page with only a couple people. We have over 750 members signed up and active on that site. So if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, I'd love to have you. I highly recommend it. And the link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. And with that said, we're going to dive into some Saturday action. And I'm talking about NC State, Syracuse. And that game is not on our board. I don't see it on the big screen behind us. But that's going to be a 12 p.m. Eastern start time in upstate New York. Now, NC State's minus 14 on the road, totals 52. The NC State Wolfpack has won their last 2 straight, 5-2 against the spread in their last 7. This Wolfpack offense is averaging over 31 points per contest, and they're throwing for nearly 285 a game on the road. Now, wide receiver Emeka Emezie has 32 catches for 570 yards and 4 touchdowns. Emezie is averaging 18 yards per reception. NC State's thrown 19 touchdown passes on this season. Meanwhile, running back Zonovan Knight has gained over 640 yards on the ground this season and scored 7 times. Meanwhile, defensively, as much as they've struggled in certain spots, NC State has 27 total sacks on the season and double-digit interceptions. Linebacker Peyton Wilson has a pair of interceptions from that linebacker position. Wilson also has 87 total tackles and 1.5 sacks on the year. Defensive lineman Daniel Joseph also has 5.5 sacks on the season, along with 26 total tackles. And linebacker Isaiah Moore has 74 total tackles, 3 sacks, and a fumble recovery. The Wolfpacks taking on a Syracuse team who just lost their 6th straight ball game. They scored just 27 total points in their last 3 outings as well. That's 9 points a game they're averaging in their last 3. Now, the Orange is just 1-8 straight up on the season, and they lost 4 out of their last 5 at the Carrier Dome. Syracuse is scoring just 16 points a game and rushing for less than 85 yards per contest at home. The Orange has just 3 rushing touchdowns all season. Meanwhile, the quarterbacks are completing just 50% of their passes. Now, the Syracuse O-line has given up 35 total sacks on the year, and the offense has thrown 11 interceptions. Now, defensively, the Orange is giving up 31 points per contest and over 210 yards a game rushing. Now, the Syracuse pass rush is also averaging less than 1.9 sacks per contest. And when it comes to the total on this one, Syracuse is 60% to the over at the Carrier Dome this season. Meanwhile, NC State is 4-0 to the over on the road this season, 67% to the over for the entire year. So with all that said and done, give me the NC State Wolfpack minus 14 and the over 52 in that contest. All right, next matchup, it is going to be a 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time. It's going to be Pitt taking on Clemson. And once again, 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff in that game. Now, the Clemson Tigers are minus 24, totals 54.5. The Tigers are 7-0 straight up when Trevor Lawrence makes the start this season. They're also 5-0 straight up at home, and they're scoring over 45 points per contest. Now, Trevor Lawrence is completing 71% of his passes, and he's thrown for over 1,800 yards. Lawrence has 17 total touchdown passes and just 2 interceptions. Wide receiver Amari Rodgers has 48 grabs for 720 yards and 6 touchdowns. Meanwhile, running back Travis Etienne has the second most receiving yards on the team with 491. Etienne's actually caught it 37 times out of the backfield for an average of nearly 14 yards per reception. Etienne also has 2 receiving touchdowns. And when it comes to the running game, when it comes to running the football here, this Clemson offense has 21 rushing touchdowns on the season, mostly thanks to, yep, you guessed it, Travis Etienne, who has 10 rushing TDs and over 630 yards of rushing on the season. Now, this Clemson defense on the other side of the ball is giving up just 17 points per contest at home and only 170 yards passing. Safety Nolan Turner has 3 interceptions from this Clemson secondary, 26 total tackles, and 2 PBUs for the defensive back. Linebacker Balin Spector also leads this Tiger defense with 46 total tackles, along with 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Now, they're taking on a Pitt program who lost 4 out of their last 6. The Panthers have also dropped 2 out of their last 3 on the road, and they rush for less than 90 yards a game when they travel. Pitt's leading rusher, Vincent Davis, is averaging less than 3.3 yards per carry, and he gains just 40 yards per game. Meanwhile, quarterback Kenny Pickett has thrown just 10 passing touchdowns through 9 ball games. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, Pitt saw their last 6 straight ball games all get over the posted number. The Panthers are officially 3-0 to the over when they travel. Meanwhile, Clemson on the other side saw their last 4 straight get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Clemson Tigers minus 24 and the over 54.5 in that game. All right, next matchup, it is going to be a 4 p.m. Eastern start time, and I'm talking about Louisville squaring off against Boston College. It's not on our board, but that's going to be a 4 p.m. Eastern kickoff. BC is minus 1 at home, totals 55. Boston College is 3-2 straight up at home this season, 3-2 against the number in those contests. The Eagles are scoring over 31 points per contest on their home turf. Quarterback Phil Jurkovec has thrown for nearly 2,400. Let's try that again. Quarterback Phil Jurkovec has thrown for nearly 2,400 yards along with 17 touchdown passes. Wide receiver Zay Flowers has 625 yards receiving and 7 touchdown receptions. Meanwhile, tight end Hunter Long and wideout C.J. Lewis have over 940 receiving yards combined and 8 total touchdowns between the two of them. BC successfully covered the point spread over the likes of Clemson and North Carolina this season. Now they're taking on a Louisville program who dropped 2 out of their last 3, and they've also lost all 4 of their road games this season. The Cardinals went just 1-3 against the spread in those 4 road losses. The Cards are scoring just 17 points per contest when they travel, and they're throwing for less than 160 yards a game in that same category. Quarterback Malik Cunningham has thrown 11 interceptions on the season, and he's been sacked 24 times. And as a matter of fact, Cunningham's leading receiver, Des Fitzpatrick, has just 2 receiving touchdowns on this season. Meanwhile, defensively, the Cardinals are giving up nearly 190 rushing yards a game on the road as well. They also have just 4 interceptions on the season and just 9 total takeaways. Now, total-wise, Louisville's last 2 straight stayed under the posted number. They're also 3-1 to the under when they travel. Meanwhile, Boston College is officially 5-4 to the under for the entire season themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Boston College Eagles minus 1 and the over 55 in that matchup. All right, next game, it is going to be Duke, Georgia Tech, 7 p.m. Eastern start time at Bobby Dodd Stadium. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are the 1-point favorite at home, totals 58. Georgia Tech is on a 3-game losing streak, 152 total points they gave up during that stretch. They also haven't played a football game since October 31st. The Ramblin' Wrecks just 1-3 straight up at home this season, and they're scoring just 21 points per contest on the year. Quarterback Jeff Sims has somehow managed to throw double-digit interceptions this season. I know this is a run-heavy offense, but he managed to do it. So anyway, 10 interceptions for Jeff Sims, and they barely pass the ball. Georgia Tech's leading rusher, Jahmyr Gibbs, is also averaging just 52 yards rushing per game, and he's punched it into the end zone only twice. Now, this Georgia Tech defense has also been an absolute travesty. 45 points a game they're giving up at Bobby Dodd Stadium, 336 yards a game through the air. The Yellow Jacket D is averaging less than 1.86 sacks per contest. Not a great pass rush, and they have only 4 total interceptions on the season. They're also giving up over 220 yards a game rushing away from home as well. They're taking on a Duke program who's won 2 out of their last 4 themselves. They also successfully covered the point spread in 3 out of their last 5. Now, running backs Mateo Durant and Deion Jackson have combined for nearly 1,100 yards rushing on the season. They've also totaled 10 rushing touchdowns combined as well. This Blue Devil defense is also holding their opponents under 110 yards rushing per contest away from home as well. Linebacker Shaka Hayward has 62 total tackles and a pair of sacks on the season. Meanwhile, edge rushers Victor Dimkeji and Chris Rump II each have 7.5 sacks from the defensive line, 15 total sacks between the two of them. Now, Duke's successfully covered the number against the likes of Virginia Tech and Notre Dame this season. And when it comes to the total on this one, Duke's last 2 straight both got over the number. 5 out of their last 6 also got over the line. Meanwhile, Georgia Tech saw 5 out of their last 6 get over the total themselves. So with all that said and done, give me the underdog Duke Blue Devils +1 and the over 58 in that contest. And with that, we're going to dive into our next and final matchup for the show. I don't believe it's on our board here, unfortunately, but it's going to be Virginia, Florida State, 8 p.m. Eastern start time in Tallahassee. The Virginia Cavaliers are -9 on the road, totals 59.5. Virginia's on a 3-game winning streak, 4-0 against the spread in their last 4. They beat the North Carolina Tar Heels 44-41 during that stretch, and they also covered a 14-point spread against the Miami Hurricanes. Now, the Cavaliers have also successfully covered the point spread in 2 out of their last 3 road games. The Cavaliers are scoring over 31 points a game and rushing for nearly $1.60 per contest. Now, Virginia's thrown for 19 touchdown passes on the season, and they've rushed it in the end zone a dozen times on the ground as well. Quarterback Brennan Armstrong has accounted for 19 of those scores. Meanwhile, Billy Kemp IV has over 515 yards receiving on the year himself. Now, defensively, this UVA pass rush has been pretty ferocious as they've accumulated nearly 30 sacks on the season thus far. The Cavs have also gotten 8 interceptions and 14 takeaways on the year as well. Safety Brent Nelson has a pair of interceptions from this secondary, along with a dozen tackles. And linebacker Nick Jackson has 2.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 85 total tackles on the season himself. Now, they are taking on a struggling Florida State program who's on a 3-game losing streak themselves. 127 total points they gave up during that skid. Really struggling defensively over the past month or so. Now, the Seminoles are just 1-3 against the spread at Doak Campbell Stadium this season, and they've covered just 25% of their ball games for the entire year. Now, the Noles are scoring just 22 points a game and throwing for less than 200 yards per contest. They have just 8 passing touchdowns on the season compared to a dozen interceptions. Now, this FSU O-line has given up 28 sacks, and the Noles' leading receiver, Ontaria Wilson, averages just 41 yards receiving per contest. Now, Florida State's top running back is gaining just 46 yards a game on the ground as well. Meanwhile, defensively, the Noles have been an absolute disaster there as well. Over 36 points a game they're giving up and nearly 200 yards a game on the ground. Now, the Seminoles have gotten to the quarterback just 10 times through 8 ball games, virtually a non-existent pass rush, and they have only 5 interceptions on the season. Now, the Florida State defense has also given up 28 points or more in 6 out of their last 7 ball games, and when it comes to the total on this one, 2 out of Florida State's last 4 ball games stayed under the posted total. They also saw 2 out of their last 4 home games stay under the line as well. Meanwhile, 2 out of Virginia's last 4 contests stayed under the posted total themselves. They're officially 9-1 to the under in their last 10, head-to-head meetings with Florida State. A lot of unders when these teams meet. Give me the Virginia Cavaliers -9 and the under 59.5 in that game. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind, we'll bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. Most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.